As long as there's been television, there's been people on television selling you the latest and the greatest. One of a kind, never been seen before, mind-blowing must-have item. But does it ever really deliver? Remember the Fire Festival from just a few years ago?
All these models, like in the Bahamas.
The most insane festival the world has ever seen.
Island getaway turned disaster.
It became very barbaric.
What was supposed to be the can't-miss party of the millennium turned out to be a catastrophe. The models that were promised never showed up. The gourmet food they advertised turned out to be something from a school cafeteria. And things got so bad, the party's organizer even ended up in jail. But PR scams like this, they've been around. New Coke was hailed as the future of soda and was going to take the beverage world by storm in the 1980s. Well, that didn't work. Just a few months later, they were back to the classic. And how about the Segway? Once billed as the most revolutionary change to transportation since the horse and buggy, became nothing more than a punchline in bad movies.
How's that? Is that valid enough for you? That was pretty valid, huh?
Now, most of these marketing failures have little consequence. Most of the wrong people still get paid, but at least they leave the scene of the crime. But that same thing can't be said about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the new Coke of politics. In 2018, AOC was the fresh face on the block after she upset longtime Democrat incumbent Congressman Joe Crowley. The media fell head over heels for their it girl.
She ran because she was focused on the issues that people in her community cared about.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she is the hottest ticket in Democratic politics.
She absolutely is.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is just a superstar. I haven't seen anyone in recent years ever really being able to harness that social media following.
She's 29 years old. She is a woman. She is Hispanic. And most importantly, she represents this fusion of movement politics and electoral politics that seems to be where the energy on the left is right now.
AOC was all sizzle, no steak. Literally. I think she's vegan. But her quick rise to the top wasn't an accident. She was a planned, packaged, and processed candidate sold to a hungry young generation by a slick and shallow media. Empty calories Cortez. Her story begins with Bernie Sanders, his failed run for the presidency in 2016, where a campaign volunteer and Silicon Valley executive, Sakat Chakrabarti, began recruiting hundreds of progressives for House races. Chakrabarti identified AOC, and after realizing his product's potential, he decided he'd run her campaign. He cast her, she won, and then he named himself her chief of staff. So it's safe to say that with Chakrabarti writing the script, AOC was making noise on the left. He was the brains behind the Green New Deal, not AOC, which is actually a compliment because that whole thing's crazy. But the more a plan doesn't make sense, the more the media loves it. In early 2019, she appeared on the cover of Time magazine and Rolling Stone as the anointed heir, the future of the Democrat Party. But a funny thing happened once her mastermind and chief of staff exited in August 2019. Ocasio-Cortez lost the heat on her fastball.
Vaughn's showing some signs of fatigue out there. He seems to have lost some zip on his fastball.
Without the man behind the curtain, she stopped making a splash on social media. Never goes viral anymore. Her timing and wit vanished with her chief of staff. Was he AOC's Oz? Oh, most definitely. Most people no longer care what AOC has to say about health care while she makes dinner in her little apartment. And when she's pressed on real issues, she has no real answers.
Medicare for all would save the American people a very large amount of money. Why aren't we incorporating the cost of all the funeral expenses of those who die because they can't afford access to health care?
We look at these figures and we say, oh, unemployment is low, everything is fine, right? Well, unemployment is low because everyone has 2 jobs.
You use the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that?
I think what I meant is like the settlements.
In fact, did AOC run for Congress just to be famous? She's on the red carpet more than Ryan Seacrest. Ocasio-Cortez says she represents the downtrodden of society. But has she actually done anything for her constituents? Since taking over New York's 14th congressional district, the area has fallen on hard times. AOC forced Amazon out of Queens, pushing as many as 40,000 jobs out of the area. Jobs that were sorely needed at that district. Wages are down and crime is up. So as she fails her constituents, we wanted to know what they really think of her. Not what CNN or Vanity Fair or Chuck Todd thinks of her. We know what Chuck thinks, and we wish we didn't. So we sent some producers to her district to ask around.
Who represents you in Congress?
It's AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
AOC.
Ocasio-Cortez.
I'm guessing it's AOC.
Can you tell me who represents you in Congress?
No.
Does AOC sound familiar?
No.
Hello.
Never heard of her. Who's AOC?
What would you say AOC stands for?
Maybe
AOC stands for democracy, basically.
You believe in democracy, don't you?
What do you think AOC stands for?
Herself?
I think it's interesting that she's down in Florida, partying.
I think AOC dresses fantastic.
You look fabulous.
What specifically would you say AOC has done for this district?
What she's done for the district is harder for me to name specifically.
I'm not really too sure. A lot of photo ops.
Cheese! AOC, she killed 40,000 Amazon jobs that could have come to this community. Do you support that?
Yes, I do.
Whoa, how could you even say that?
It wasn't necessarily a bad thing. There's a lot of jobs here already.
She didn't kill it out of, mean-spiritedness.
Maybe not. There's a lot of people that needs jobs and stuff like that.
People are struggling, and it would have been great to have all those jobs.
Let me ask you about crime. It's up big time here in the city. What has she done to address that?
I haven't heard anything about her addressing crime.
She was behind the bail reform, and that turned out to need a lot of tweaking.
We might have to tweak that a little bit.
Things are a lot more expensive here in Queens, so do you think AOC is doing anything to help the rise in prices?
I hope they are. Do I see it? No.
Is it obviously expensive?
I mean, it's one banana, Michael. What could it cost? $10?
If you could tell your congresswoman something, what would you say?
I will vote for you in 2004 if you run for president.
What year is it?
You look like a wonderful dressed New Yorker.
Keep refining yourself. Everybody, has to get better at their job.
I can do better!
Maybe a little less idealism and a little more trying to help working class people.
Leave office. Do us all a favor.
Even her own voters can't come up with any answers on how she's combating the out-of-control crime in New York City or how she's working to fight the surging inflation they're dealing with. This is because AOC is among the least productive members of Congress. She's sponsored 34 bills in Congress. Not a single one of them has been passed into law. So what is she doing all day in Congress?
What is she doing? I never know what she's doing back there.
Turns out she's doing a whole lot of nothing. But don't tell her that, because AOC thinks if you criticize her, it just means you really want to date her. Well, we just found you a bunch of dates, Congresswoman, right there in your district. AOC is just the latest example of politicians who've done nothing for the people they represent, and we'll be calling them out one by one. The media might love her now, but it's only a matter of time before something new comes around. Then they have to get the old product off the shelves.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.